Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Rank where I climb the online VGC 15 ladder, still trying out the Mega Lopunny team that we debuted on Monday here on Road to Ranked. I did want to change up the items a bit, so Choice Specs is actually now on Hydreigon, Life Orb is moved to Aegislash, and Sylveon now is trying out a Pixie Plate set with Protect over the Sleep Talk Choice Specs that I was running earlier, just because I really like the ability to change up the moves with Sylveon, and I've used Specs Hydreigon for a while, so we'll see how this plays out. A bunch of you guys actually recommended Lopunny to run Encore, and I really want to consider that, so I might be changing up this Lopunny set, but for today we're just going to keep it the same with Fake Out, Ice Punch, Return, and Low Kick, as we're going to jump into the ladder. As always, if you enjoy the series, please leave a like to show your support. Also, yesterday there was the first episode of Trainer Tip Tuesdays, and I actually uploaded a guide on Team Preview, which a lot of you guys have been asking about. So if you want to learn more things about Team Preview, check that out. It's going to be in the link in the description below. I think it's a pretty helpful video. I'm planning on doing more Team Preview stuff in the future. One thing I actually want to do is pull analysis from official VGC games and tell you basically what the top players were probably thinking when they were in Team Preview. But this one's a pretty generic guide, but I think it'll be pretty helpful, especially because it'll allow you to really get into my mind and see my thought process. But yeah, thanks so much for all the support you guys have shown for the last 2 days. I have big plans for this channel, and I'm working really hard to get the best quality content I can, as I really keep on repeating, but you guys have been really nice and supportive, and it really makes me happy to read all your comments every day. I'll do my best to reply to all of them, and tomorrow should actually be the debut of the other series where I basically analyze one of your teams. So, if you want to submit a team, as always, email me at cybertronvgc@gmail.com. I'll take a look at them, and I'll pick one where I'll basically analyze it and edit it and whatnot. It's taking us quite a while, actually, to find our first opponent of the day. We're finally going to find someone, Rabid Ewok, with a rating of 1488 from South Carolina, US. So, a pretty low rating, but he's actually got a pretty legitimate team here, so, definitely not going to discount him. As we see the Bisharp, Sylveon, Gengar, Conkeldurr, Salamence, and Lapras, so 5 of the 6 Pokemon you guys are probably pretty familiar with, since I've used on Road to Rank quite a, good amount. The Lapras here is really interesting, so we'll see how this plays out. As always, when you're going up against lower rated players, it's always scary, because you don't know whether maybe, they just started, but they're actually really good, or maybe, they're not as good. So typically, you want to play as safe as possible, and my opponent actually has a pretty threatening team here. However, I actually really like my Lopunny Sylveon lead, just because Lopunny puts on offensive pressure, with Fake Out immediately, and it can Mega Evolve and Fake Out the Gengar, which is also pretty cool. Let's see. So the Salamence, would be the Mega Evolution, because nothing else in my opponent's team can Mega Evolve, so I think I should bring Suicune here to try to beat it. Suicune's not a bad pick in general anyway. For the last one, I actually want Aegislash here, because my opponent doesn't have any great way to hit it other than that Bisharp, and I can deal with Bisharp with Lopunny, Suicune, or Sylveon. So we're going to lock in and see how this goes. Should be a pretty cool match. I'm wondering if my opponent's going to end up bringing Lapras here or not, just because Lapras wouldn't actually be a terrible pick, especially given that I had, Pokemon like not Salamence, Landorus and Hydreigon, but I didn't feel the need to bring either of those, so I'm going to lead with the Lopunny Sylveon lead. And of course, this Sylveon now does have Protect, and it's, Hyper Voice is still boosted slightly, as my opponent goes with Gengar and Salamence, which is not bad here. Salamence, of course, getting Intimidate, which actually hurts my Lopunny, given that I have Ice Punch on it. But what I can do this first turn is Mega Evolve, obviously go for the Fake Out, and since I do have Psyshock, I can actually just Psyshock Gengar, because the Protect with Salamence is quite obvious. And Hyper Voice, I don't know, alternatively I could just go Fake Out. Because the thing here is, the obvious play for my opponent is like to Protect with Mance and go for like a Sludge Bomb or a Will-O-Wisp with Gengar. Though, you know what, I'm just going to Fake Out Gengar and Hyper Voice. This is a pretty safe play. My Sylveon is quite bulky, so we'll see what the Salamence goes for. Though, I don't know, I'm leaving it to risk here, because I just allowed him to maybe KO me with a Double Edge onto Sylveon, which might not have been the smartest play. But we'll see if Salamence protects here. Okay, it doesn't protect, so let's see what this Salamence goes for. This Fake Out does a good amount there. Flinches Gengar. He goes for the Rock Slide, okay. Going for that flinch right away. Let's see if Sylveon flinches. Nope, it gets that Hyper Voice off. Okay, great. So I'm glad I ended up not protecting there, as I actually just knock out my opponent's Mega Salamence. interesting decision there. I don't know why you'd really Rock Slide against a Lopunny and a Sylveon. And I realized after I locked in, like, if my opponent just went for a return or double edge, that would have been really bad. So I'm glad that it ended up happening as Bisharp comes in for my opponent now. Let's see, I'm going to low kick the Bisharp and protect with Sylveon here. Mainly because my opponent can't one-hit KO me. Okay, Bisharp goes for the Smart Protect though. Nicely done on my opponent's end. Presumably Gengar's going to go for a Sludge Bomb or a Will-O-Wisp into the Lopunny. So low kick's not going to do anything there as Sludge Bomb. Yep, into the Lopunny. Good read by my opponent. Doesn't KO me or poison me though, which is great. So now I'm actually just going to low kick and Hyper Voice. Because Sylveon should be able to take a Sludge Bomb, so my opponent might be tempted to target the Lopunny with like a Sucker Punch. And if that is the case, then Sylveon gets a Hyper Voice off, and that'll basically be game. We do see the Sucker Punch come out from the Bisharp. It does knock out the Lopunny. Sludge Bomb shouldn't knock out my Sylveon here, barring like a really high damage roll or crit. The Bisharp does have the Life Orb, which is why that was a good protect from my opponent that last turn. Yeah, Sludge Bomb does not KO me. I hang out with 25 HP, get the Hyper Voice off. That should do a ton of damage to both Pokemon. Knocking out the Gengar actually, and Bisharp is in range for it to be KO'd after Life Orb recoil. So that's really good. I get a free switch into my Suicune here, and once this Bisharp goes down, Suicune and Aegislash should be able to seal up the game, as Lapras is my opponent's last one. It's actually a pretty scary Pokemon to go up against. So let's see. I'm actually going to Tailwind and switch Sylveon. Well, the thing is, if I switch Sylveon out, I risk my opponent predicting me and going for the knockoff onto that slot, and there's no reason not to knock off Sylveon right now. I'll Tailwind. Actually, do I want to Tailwind? See, I actually really do want to. The thing is, I should be my Bisharp should be able to take an attack from that Bisharp anyway. So I'll Scald into it. Well, there's no reason to actually target down Bisharp. I guess I'll Protect with Suicune and switch out to Aegislash. Like, I should be able to survive the Life Orb knockoff even if my opponent chooses to go for that play. And Sylveon gets a lot of damage off against this Lapras. Okay, but Bisharp goes for the Protect, which is great because now I can just protect King Shield with Aegislash and Scald the next turn, as Suicune's going to avoid any damage. So that actually plays out perfectly. As Lapras goes, wow, for the Thunderbolt. Not out of any move, you know, to expect. That was not what I was expecting. But now I can just Scald the Bisharp. And I'll go for the King Shield for insurance. You know, he might go for the knockoff onto Suicune. If that is the case, you know, that's fine. Suicune loses its Citrus Berry and takes some damage. But most importantly, you know, still be a 3-on-1 here. I don't want Aegislash getting KO'd by the knockoff, since that Thunderbolt actually might put me in KO range. So I'm just going to play it safe here. There's no reason not to. Though if I were my opponent here, you know, I would knock off the Suicune, but that's not going to be the case. My opponent probably knows he has no other way to deal with the Bisharp, so it's going to, you know, lose the attack, gain it back with the Define, but most importantly, Suicune's going to get the Scald off here and knock out the Bisharp. So it's a 3-on-1 battle now. Lapras, let's go for that Freeze Dry onto Suicune. Let's see how much damage this does. Not too much. So I'm just gonna Ice Beam. Unfortunately, Suicune can't do very much right now, but it's fine. Aegislash right now can just put on a lot of offensive pressure, and it's a 3-on-1. You know, obviously my opponent's gonna want to target down the Aegislash here. But the good thing is, you know, Lapras is faster than Aegislash, so he's not going to be able to catch me in Blade form, as he continues to target down Suicune. Like, the reason why I'm not switching out here is because I get another free Hyper Voice off with that Sylveon, so I don't want to just, you know, waste it here. So I get a Shadow Ball off. See how much damage it does. Yeah, that Life Orb is really putting in work. Basically puts it in KO range, but it does have the Citrus Berry, which makes lots of sense. So, you know, I'm just going to play safe here. I'm going to King Shield, put me back into Shield form. So, Aegislash is actually a really cool Pokemon. I did not use it very much in VGC 2014, and this is actually, you know, this team is the first time I'm using it in VGC 2015, but I think it's really, really good. You know, it's been really successful in VGC. You know, it's got one of the coolest abilities out there, and I really like it. My opponent's smart enough to predict the King Shield there, but like I said, there's no reason not to play it safe here. So kind of a long drawn out ending, but it's fine. Basically, like, let's say I just decided to be more aggressive there with Aegislash and went for a Shadow Ball, and my opponent ended up like scalding, crit KOing that slot. Then I'd have a Suicune and a Sylveon, you know, both which would be at low HP. A Suicune obviously is doing nothing to this Lapras right now. He does go for the Hydro Pump, so finally deciding to target down that Aegislash does bring me down to 65 HP, so another one might actually be able to knock me out, but the main thing is, even if this Shadow Ball doesn't KO, Sylveon should be able to clean up the game. As, yeah. So all I have to do here is actually go for the Tailwind. Well, actually, no, let's see. That Lapras might have Ice Shard. I'm thinking of its moveset. We've seen, just wondering, Hydro Pump, Freeze Dry, Thunderbolt. So, could have Ice Shard, actually. Or Protect. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is actually go for the Protect with Suicune and the King Shield. Yeah. That Hydro Pump actually did a bit more damage than I expected. So I'm just playing it safe here to ensure I get an extra attack off. But could actually be scary if the Lapras' last one is Ice Shard. Okay, so he has the Hydro Pump Aegislash here. Yeah, so I'm actually gonna Tailwind and sack Sylveon. And if he targets down Suicune, then I get a free Sylveon switch in, so I don't think there's anything that can go wrong with this play. Yep, so I get the Tailwind up, which means Aegislash now outspeeds the Lapras, which means I should be able to just outspeed and KO, as he goes for the Freeze Dry once again into Suicune. Which is perfect for me, because Suicune obviously is not useful at all. Surprised he didn't try to target down that Aegislash slot with a Hydro Pump after I King Shielded, because that was his win condition. But like I said, it didn't matter, because once the Tailwind went up, Aegislash would be able to outspeed. So just playing it a bit safe here, because Lapras might have Ice Shard. Though sometimes I like don't count up the amount of moves my opponent says I actually use. And let's see, we Freeze Dry, Hydro Pump, Thunderbolt, yeah. I guess it doesn't, because it didn't go for it here. So Sylveon knocks out that Lapras with the Hyper Voice, and I'm able to win the first game 2-0. Good game, Rabid Ewok. I kind of lucked out that first turn, I guess, because the Sylveon, like the double edge slash return, you know, this Sylveon is pretty darn bulky, as you see by the HP number, but it would have probably been a damage roll if not an outright KO. So obviously, like I fake out onto Mence and Hyper Voice. Would have been a great play, you know, just to ensure that I knocked it out, but I didn't want to take a Sludge Bomb from the Gengar, or nor an Icy Wind or Will-O-Wisp, and it's really hard to predict what your opponent's going to do, you know, against, like, players I know, or maybe higher rated players, you know, typically I would be able to make a stronger prediction as a Sona Umi from Japan with a rating of 1823, so a much higher rated opponent here. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to make those calls, and I think that's actually another video I want to cover in Trainer Tip Tuesdays in the future. You know, how to make the safest plays possible against opponents where you don't know exactly where their skill level lies. You know, against higher rated opponents, typically you can assume they're going to make, like, you know, the best plays possible, I'd say. But Sonoda, excuse me, has a team of Kangaskhan, Sylveon, Volcarona, Cresselia, Landoti, and Thundurus, so lots of familiar Pokemon. You know, you guys should be pretty familiar to those. Nothing really out of the ordinary. Let's see here. Man, I'm really loving this Aegislash pick because it feels like I feel very comfortable bringing it to the majority of my games. As always, the question is what to lead with. I actually really like Lopunny and Landorus. Though that's a bit weak to Sylveon. Maybe I should outright just go with Aegislash, because Aegislash puts on so much pressure against my opponent right away. I do like the Aegislash call, actually. Aegislash and I'm gonna go Aegislash Landorus. Because, you know, the one thing Aegislash really doesn't want to go up against is that Volcarona. And, you know, what beats Volcarona? Landorus. Let's see what I want in the back. I'm still going to bring Mega Lopunny here, especially for that Kangaskhan. Honestly, Sylveon is not a bad call here. I don't know, like, Suicune's really nice against everything bar the Thundurus, so maybe my goal should be to try to knock out this Thundurus for Suicune to come in, because it beats Volk and Lando. Though Sylveon is, I don't know, Sylveon just gets nice Hyper Voices off. Hydreigon's also a tempting pick here, so this is a tough call to make. Let's see. I'm actually gonna go with Sylveon. The reason being, Hydreigon can get knocked out by Bug Buzz from Volcarona, Hyper Voice from Sylveon, and Superpower from Lando T, whereas my Sylveon, my opponent doesn't have a great way to one-hit KO it, other than, for example, maybe a Double Edge slash, or it has to be the Double Edge from Kangaskhan. And I do have a bunch of ways to check the Kangaskhan. Landers, Aegislash, and Lopunny actually all deal with it really well. But my opponent does lead with the Kangaskhan Sylveon lead, which I'm perfectly fine with, because I get a free Intimidate off here. Now, you'd assume he's going to go for the Fake Out Hyper Voice. So, let's see. I can actually just Wide Guard here. This is why I wanted to lead with Aegislash, because I knew Wide Guard countered the majority of, my opponent's team does rely somewhat on those attacks. So, I'm gonna Wide Guard, and oh, I forgot to tutor Superpower until this Landorus. I knew I was missing something. I told myself, okay, do this thing before. But let's see. I kind of want to switch out here, but it's not like Lopunny even wants to take a Fake Out. I really wish I tutored Superpower on before. Wide Guard, and I could actually just Earthquake. Now, I'm actually going to switch out to Lopunny. It's going to take a Fake Out from that Kangaskhan most likely, but whatever. That way, you know, I can put on a lot of offensive pressure this next turn because I can just outspeed and get a low kick off. But we'll see. So Kangaskhan does Mega Evolve here. You know, I was potentially thinking maybe my opponent's going to predict this Wide Guard and Fake Out the Aegislash, but not going to be the case as Fake Out does go onto the Lando slot. Targeting Lopunny. Wow, gets the crit there. Not fun to deal with, especially because Lopunny is furrowed up as it is. I get the Wide Guard off, but that crit is slightly annoying to deal with. Yeah, and Hyper Voice obviously going to be blocked off there, which is great. So, let's see. Kangaskhan's probably going to want to switch out now, I think. But the thing is, I can keep on just spamming Wide Guard here, which is pretty cool. Kangaskhan Sylveon, so I wonder what my opponent has in the back. It's definitely not going to be Cress. Lando would make sense here, so I kind of want to nail a Lando switching, because that would be great. I don't know, actually I'm just going to Flash Cannon Sylveon Mega Evolve, and I really want to Ice Punch this Kangaskhan slot, predicting it to switch out. Though it might switch out into, like, Volk. Yeah, I went for the return. It does switch out, so whatever comes in is going to be taking a stab return from this Lopunny. It's going to be Landorus, okay. This close to the Ice Punching it, but I wasn't sure whether he had, like, Volcarona in the back or not. But that's fine. I wonder if Lopunny is staying in here, though. Yeah, it is going to be... Or not Lopunny, the Sylveon. It is going to be a double switch, which is why I kind of went for the offense here. And it is going to be the Thunderous Landorus that I thought my opponent might have had in the back. So that's alright. I get a lot of free damage off here, which is great. Bringing momentum slightly back into my favor. Obviously, you know, Lopunny took a bit of extra damage that first turn because I switched it into a Fake Out. But, hey, you know what? At least I get some damage off here. As I should have went for Shadow Ball onto... Yeah, because this Thunderous is obviously going to resist this, yeah. I do get a special defense drop. Okay. Now it's a bit tricky because, first of all, I don't know... Well, okay, I want to switch out... I'm going to switch out Aegislash into Landorus. And I'm actually going to double switch here. The reason because Aegislash deals with my opponent's back P really well. Lopunny deals with them relatively well as well because I can just low kick. And yes, this is a pretty decent time for Sylveon to switch in. As wow, my opponent's actually going to switch out that Thunderous. So lots of switches occurring here. But Kangaskhan comes in, which I'm pretty happy about because I just got to free switch it into my Landorus. Which obviously is going to intimidate both my opponent's physical type attackers. But some high level mind games right now with all these switches going on, as we're both trying to really get a grasp for momentum. And Landorus goes for the U-turn, so this is really full cycle here. Clever move by my opponent there. Wonder what we're gonna be seeing. I don't mind Thundurus or Sylveon coming in here, honestly, but yeah, it is gonna be Sylveon. Okay, this got interesting. Now it's like, wow, I really wish I had superpower. Okay. Yeah, if I had superpower, what I would do here is just superpower Hyper Voice. Okay, so the Kangaskhan's intimidated. That's really important right now. I think I might just switch back out into the Aegislash. Though I could U-turn as well, but you know, I'm gonna U-turn here and Hyper Voice. This way, regardless of who Kangaskhan targets with that fake out, get free damage off. Though there's a good chance it's gonna fake out Sylveon. Nope, it's gonna be Landorus. Okay, cool. So this was just like a safe play, as okay, it's good to know that his Sylveon outspeeds mine as well. That's got to be specs based off how much damage it did. Oh man, that Pixie Play Hyper Voice is really strong still. Oh man, probably switching out to Aegislash and Protecting would have been a better play there, because I took out a lot of damage. Dang. I'm gonna switch into Aegislash and Protect here. Wow, that was a really clever play to switch out the Thundurus and U-turn with Landorus. I did not expect that double switch out. So I'm just gonna make the safe play here. As he double edges into Aegislash, and Hyper Voice isn't going to do too much here. Wow, I can't believe double edge. I mean, I assume he has fake out, but not fake out, Sucker Punch, but maybe he doesn't. Let's see. So my opponent's gonna double edge the Sylveon slot. Maybe he'll Sucker Punch. This is really tough right now. Yeah, I don't know. Right now, it's just like my Pokemon are too heavily damaged, and his Sylveon being able to outspeed mine is probably the biggest concern. I'm going to Flash Cannon Sylveon, and you know what? I'm just going to Hyper Voice here. In the off chance he like Sucker Punch. Oh wow! He switches out. Okay, cool. As Thundurus comes in. No, I'm gonna faint to this Hyper Voice, unfortunately. Oh wow, I survived. Did not expect that. So I got a free Hyper Voice off here, which is great. Oh, nice. The bulk of Sylveon really coming through right there. So I'm gonna be able to pick up a knockout here against the Sylveon, but I don't know. Right now, the speed of my opponent's team is just kind of overwhelming me. But clutch survival on Sylveon's end there. It's pretty fortunate. And the main issue right now I have is that my Landorus took way too much damage from that Hyper Voice. I really wish I switched out that one turn, but I don't know. I wasn't thinking entirely straight. Okay, as Kangaskhan comes back in. So this is interesting because I've still got that Lopunny saved up. This is a really intense match. And I want a King Shield here, but my opponent might taunt. But even if he taunts, like, what can... Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to King Shield. I'm not going to risk it. And I'm just going to sack Sylveon. Sylveon has done basically everything I needed it to. The Pixie Plate Protect is actually working out perfectly right now. As you see how much Hyper Voice does to Kangaskhan even from that boost. So I'm going for the safe King Shield here. I fully expect a T-Wave and a taunt, but I'm not going. I'm going to play it safe. And he's not even going to go for it. Wow! Going for the double edge into the... Maybe predicting a switch out? Well, that makes me somewhat upset because I could have just attacked there. It's weird the attack didn't go the other way, but okay. So I'm going to bring in Landorus now. This is really coming down to the wire. If I had superpower, man. I think what my opponent's going to do is double edge Lando or switch out. So what I'm gonna do is Shadow Ball, Thundurus, and Rock Slide here. It's going to taunt, okay. Oh, that's a really good taunt because his last one is Lando, so you can just Earthquake. Rock Slide unfortunately doesn't knock it out, but I do flinch the Kangaskhan, which is really fortunate there. Though I should have targeted Kangaskhan with an attack there instead of the Thundurus. Though now it's interesting because if my opponent's Lando wants the Earthquake, he's gonna have to Earthquake himself. So that was a very timely flinch as Landorus comes back in for my opponent. I don't know, I don't feel good about my position right now, given that I've got a -1 Lando and an taunted Aegislash. The switch out here is so obvious that I think my opponent, let's see, I also don't know what item that Landorus has, which is, you know, the biggest issue. I know it's foolish, but I honestly am tempted to attack here because the switch out into Lopunny is so obvious. You know what? I'm just gonna attack with Aegislash. I'm gonna go for it. Okay, he goes for the sucker though. I thought that was a bit too obvious to predict, but my opponent was smart enough to get that read. He's gonna. Oh wow! Landorus avoids the Rock Slide, and given that he went before me, that confirms it is Scarf Landorus, which is actually perfect. I didn't even need the avoid. Well, it's gonna depend on whether he can flinch me, and you know, the RNG has been somewhat kind to me at this late game. Yeah, I'm really surprised he didn't make that read onto Aegislash because he was gonna lock. I guess no, it makes sense, you know, if he was gonna lock himself into it. But now what I can do is just fake out the Kangaskhan to knock it out. It's gonna come down to whether Rock. And of course, I've been fortunate enough these first 2 turns to, you know, get the flinch onto Kangaskhan with Rock Slide, as I am able to knock out my opponent's Mega Kangaskhan. But yeah, RNG was definitely on my side this time. You see a Rock Slide here. How much does it do? Doesn't knock out my Landorus. My Landorus gets a Rock Slide off as well. But my opponent wins on a flinch here. It's going to come down to whether he flinches me. If he misses, of course, he just loses as well. But I'll go for the Ice Punch and the Rock Slide. Alright, no misses, so he's going to knock out Lando here. How much does it do to Lopunny? Down to 18 HP, so I can't survive another one, critting my Landorus. It's going to flinch here, I just know it. I called it. I called it. So I'm banking off a miss here. Nah. You gotta love this game, but I can't complain. RNG was, I was fortunate enough to even get where I was in the first place because I flinched his Kangaskhan and I avoided the Rock Slide with my Lando earlier, and that was a bad play on my end. All I actually had to do was switch out to Aegislash. I mean, switch out to Lopunny. And I actually think that was a pretty bad misplay now that I think about it, because like I could have taken a Rock Slide, and then all I had to do is fake out the Kangaskhan and Aegislash would have won the game. So that was one of the cases where I didn't think things throughly. I made a overly aggressive play that wasn't necessary, but me not knowing the item that my opponent's Landorus had was also one of the biggest issues, though perhaps I could have, I missed it earlier when he went for the U-turn that turn. I don't quite remember, but yeah, that was the biggest issue, because if my opponent wasn't choice, then I was basically done for. But so I was trying to fish out and scout out for some information there, and of course it could have completely gone the other way. The crit onto Lopunny actually ended up hurting a lot as well, because had he not crit the fake out, would have had more HP there in the end of the game. But you know, that's Pokemon for you. There was RNG on both ends, and ultimately it was a really close game, and you know, I really like those games, though I hate it when it literally comes to a coin flip. But a very nicely played game by my opponent. I thought like the momentum and switching management was very smart. And it was a lot of fun, so hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Lots of fun. Unfortunately, the Lopunny team once again goes 1-1, but we were very close to picking up the second win in today's episode. And I do think Lopunny pulled its weight today. Put on a lot of offensive pressure. Unfortunately, it was just not able to take those Rock Slides in the end, so I might actually invest a bit more in HP to take those non-resistant attacks, because Fake Out and Rock Slide knocked out this Lopunny at the end of the day. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. As always, leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I shall see you tomorrow. Alright, peace.